Hi, I'm Mike Papantonio, and this is America's Lawyer. President Biden dropped out of the presidential race on Sunday, and Vice President Harris immediately took control of the campaign. But Democrats may want to slow down before they anoint Harris as the candidate, according to the numbers. Wall Street's trying to cash in on asbestos lawsuits, and will explain their dirty scheme to get rich and deny victims what they're owed. And Republicans, well, they're saying that President Biden has to resign from office after dropping out of the presidential race. All that and more, it's coming up. Don't go anywhere. America's Lawyer starts right now. President Biden is officially out of the presidential race now, and Vice President Harris is likely to be the nominee without any pushback. But that's not what the Democratic Party needs right now, and an open convention could be the key to victory in November. I've got Ring of Fire's Farron Cousins with me to talk about that. Big news, obviously. Of course, we were so criticized for saying he's got to step down, he's got to step down. It was absurd. I mean, the people, he's my guy, he's fine. No, he wasn't fine. And now he steps down, does the right thing for this country.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're not really talking about. What a big step that was for this country for him to do that. And I'm proud of him for doing it, frankly.
Yeah.
But so now everybody's attention turns to Kamala Harris. Pick it up.
Yeah, so what we've seen, really in just the last few days is, really in the hours after Biden made the announcement, he then immediately endorsed Harris as the heir apparent. Then immediately all of the Democrats start coalescing around her and say, okay, she's going to be the nominee. Who's going to be the VP? They already moved on and accepted the fact that, nope, she's got it. She's our person. Now who's the VP? And so that's where the media immediately moved. But hold up now. We have time. We do not need to make any rash decisions. We do not have to say, yes, we're going to do this, or no, we're not going to do that. Can we at least, and this is what we talked about with Biden, can we at least, for the love of God, have a conversation first before we make these massive decisions? Let's think for just a second. And the Democratic Party said, no, we're good to go. We got it.
It's not the way the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, the power that they wield over the American voters, okay? And so now we've got this candidate that Trump is delighted to run against. And maybe you can make heads or tails of it. I don't. New York Times, she is least electable. New York Times, she's the most risky candidate. I'm not really seeing that right now. I think they have time. If this is their choice, they have time to make her competitive. If the numbers right now, she's not even remotely competitive. But what's occurred here is that you had the Democrats really were threatening Biden with, we're gonna invoke the 25th Amendment here. If you don't do something, we're gonna join the Republicans and you got to step down. But it looked like this has been laid out in place for at least 3-4 weeks, don't you think?
I don't think Biden would have come to this decision if they didn't already have this apparatus in place behind the scenes, knowing that, okay, Harris is going to take over. And I will say, if you look at the polls right now, Trump is still winning, but in the aggregates, he's winning by 2 points over Harris. And that is typically well within the margin of error, because we're seeing margins of error of 4 to 5%. So it is still a toss-up, and it is a statistical tie, but she does poll better, obviously, than Biden does against Trump. The last poll we had for Biden Sunday morning, losing Michigan by 7 points.
It was disastrous.
So the writing was on the wall for Biden.
Yeah.
And of course, in the few days since Harris has already taken over as the potential nominee here, more than $100 million in 36 hours the Democratic Party raised. That is insane. And you now have a poll earlier this week, 80% of Democrats say, yep, we're good with Harris. So it does seem like, okay, I know the Democrats, we should have a conversation, but I think at this point, even if we do have the conversations, I think everybody has already coalesced around Harris to the point where
there's no turning back. And so it is what it is.
Yeah.
And so when you look at what both sides of it, the critics, She was terrible on border immigration, the surge of migrant problems. She was supposed to figure out the root cause. She didn't do it. She had so little visibility. I don't know whether they did that on purpose, but she had very little visibility.
Well, there's big reports, too, from the first 2 years of the Biden administration that these two were not getting along.
Yeah,
and Biden was not happy with her.
Yeah. Her ability to speak. It's awkward. It's unclear. This isn't me, just so you know. This is coming directly from Washington Post, New York Times, all these various places.
Right.
She's awkward. She's unclear. She can't convey a message. The thing of staff turnover, that keeps coming up. Where 90% of her staff turned over. What is that important? First of all, is it an issue people even really care about? But this, I'm going through the hits on her that we're seeing in the press, and that's one of them. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you got to be able to weather the storm, obviously, and the staff turnover thing. That's something even you and I had talked about within the last couple of years, which does indicate some kind of issue with the leadership taking place at that office. But I think at this point, Harris may have, matured as a candidate. Not saying she was immature, but just as a candidate, it's a different world. So we could be looking at somebody who's a little different than what we saw in 2020. She does have a little more experience under her belt at this point on the national level, but you bring up a good point. She hasn't done a whole lot other than the last 6 months or so. Once Biden, okay, let's not have him out there, she finally did start coming out more, where it was a little bit better than what we saw.
They almost hid her. I mean, some of these
first
articles
few
talking
years,
about, they just kept her in hiding.
And now it's the opposite. Now we haven't seen Biden in a week.
Yeah, one of these weird, these conspiracy nuts are so freaking crazy. Like, no, Trump wasn't shot in the ear. The one on Biden is Biden alive? I mean, really? How freaking crazy have we become? But as I'm looking at the pros and the cons, they talk about the problem that Harris had when she was running for president. That in Iowa and New Hampshire, she was in low single digits, had to pull out. Even in California, she was around 12%. And the newest thing is that she helped cover up the story about how bad Biden was. But on the positive side, let's talk about negatives and positives. There are some positives out there. First of all, she was tough on crime. She supported the death penalty from a conservative standpoint. They're going to like this. She supported the death penalty. She supported the three-strike rule. She tried cases. I think she tried 37 drug cases. She's young. If she could learn how to speak, she would have some of that young charisma, but somebody's got to work with her on it. Somebody has to sit her down and say, what is this? Why do you always sound like you're in La La Land when you speak?
She, to me, appears to have a lot of nervous energy. That's what I get when you see her. She doesn't feel comfortable. She feels like it's kind of awkward for her to be here. So, again, now that she is at the top of the ticket, essentially, she's going to get all the best advisors. She's going to get all the best coaches, and they can work with her and be like, hey, okay, listen, first of all, let's relax a little bit. We don't have to, we don't always have to have that crazy kind of,
that
we'll tone
laugh
it down.
And the crazy.
Well, she did an interview, actually, where she explained the laugh, and she says that is something, obviously people have talked about for her whole career. But she says she told a really good story about it, how it goes all the way back through her family. The women in her family have always had that laugh, and it's something that they now embrace.
Well, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. It shouldn't bother people.
It's become such a thing that she actually had to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I do think, again, with a little bit of coaching, the problem is, do you have the time?
Well, you're a Democrat. Do you feel warm and fuzzy about this?
Wouldn't have been my first choice. But I do think, based on what we've seen in this last week, there seems to be enthusiasm, which we haven't seen in over a year. There seems to be optimism, which had gone out the window when Biden was on the ticket. So I think the people are feeling good. And so, okay, let's go with it. Look, I would love it. And I think the winning ticket would be if Harris were to pick Bernie Sanders as the running mate. I know he's old, but as the vice president, the age doesn't matter as much, and you're going to bring all those Bernie people back. I just think that would be the winning ticket. They won't ever do it, but I'm not I'm not anti-Harris. I really am not. I think this could work.
Okay, well, the point is you do feel a little bit warm and fuzzy about her being your candidate. I mean, I think. That's what I mean.
To a degree, I do. Yeah.
Okay. Well, with the right, and of course with the right vice president, governor from Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the first
That's
place,
also very strong.
That's the first place I'd go. Hopefully they're looking at that. Well, we'll see how it plays out. All this, of course, just like everything that happens with the Democrats and the Republicans, it all begins in a smoke-filled, dark room where people are making decisions for the American voters. A minor glitch in the software update last week caused chaos for the banking industry. Airlines and hundreds of millions of people across the globe could not get where they wanted to go. This massive outage could have been avoided, but the companies responsible have spent millions convincing regulators to back off. We're doing fine. We don't need any help. We don't need any regulations. Well, I mean, look, it's so apparent. You've got Microsoft. You've got that is trying to blame this on.
Yeah, they're saying the CrowdStrike.
The CrowdStrike.
update
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, that is nonsense. The truth is, the federal government said to Microsoft, and they said to Amazon, and they said to Google, you guys have a big problem because you own everything. There's no diversity in the cloud system. Everything's going into the cloud and being controlled by companies that don't have the capacity to do it. And they said, no, if you do that, you're going to interfere with innovation. We've got this. Don't worry about this regulator. We've got it under control. You think back, it was the same thing with railroads. I mean, this is the closest to the railroad monopoly that I've ever seen. And for some reason, we act like it's different. It's exactly the same thing. They need to be busted up. You can't have these people controlling all this.
Right. I mean, the FTC has been on Microsoft's back for over a year, telling them, hey, this is going to cause a problem. We really need to have some hearings about this. We need you guys to respond. And every Microsoft response was, you guys are overreacting. Everything is perfectly fine. Who do you think you're talking to here? We've got this under control. In fact, as recently as 2 days before the outage, the federal regulators were warning something horrible is going to happen because you have not diversified. It is so consolidated that something as simple as a software update crippled the world.
Yeah. Understand, an update. This was run the update and everything stopped. And the point, this is a massive threat to the economy. I mean, if somebody figured out how to make this an element of war, we'd be in big trouble.
Well, and I guarantee you, after seeing what happened, they're working on it. They absolutely are working on it.
No question. So you had you have this argument. You can't regulate us. We're so smart. We have a security system. They knew they didn't have a security system. Matter of fact, it showed they didn't want to spend money on the security system. It would have cost them too much money to do what the government was telling them to do. You have to have a security system. And they lied. Basically, they absolutely made up this lie that we've got it under control, there's nothing to worry about, and that the consolidation of our companies, there should be no limits. If it's Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, we should be able to control the world of tech. And you see how dangerous this is. I mean, it's just so friggin' dangerous.
Well, honestly, I think you bring up a really great point here with the arrogance of these companies. Look, we're the tech guys. We're so much smarter than everybody else. You can't sit there in Washington, D.C. with your law degree and tell us how to run a tech company. Right. You don't know anything about this. Well, they know enough to have warned you for years that this would happen. You dismissed it, and then it happened. But they've also spent so many millions of dollars lobbying these same organizations and lawmakers to not do anything about it, that it probably would have been cheaper just to invest in the security than buying everybody off.
That's an interesting point. If you look at the multi-millions of dollars that they paid to politicians to make them vote their way, and you just said, okay, let's regroup on that. Could we have done what the government was telling us we needed to do? That we needed a security system. And had we not lied to them about, yes, we have a security system, that all this consolidation and all this power being held up in the handful of cloud service providers, if they'd been honest and if they had just taken that money and made it work, we'd have never had this problem. You're not going to change this unless you sue them. and I think that's what's coming. I think you're going to see some big lawsuits on loss of business.
Yeah.
That, as a matter of fact, we're being asked to do that. We're being asked to handle some of these big companies that say, look, they cost us gazillions of dollars. I mean, look at the airline industry.
Yeah.
They still don't have it under control. So, I mean, as this progresses, it's going to probably take a couple of more events like this. Hopefully, not as serious as this, but a couple of more events before anybody starts paying attention. And then you have AT&T. According to AT&T, the company recently suffered a massive data breach that exposed calls and text messages. It exposed all that data about all of their customers. This massive breach wasn't even a blip on the media's radar, but hundreds of millions of people have been violated, and they don't even know what happened. Well, the reason the media didn't report is because the mainstream media, or corporate media, it's not mainstream anymore.
Right.
I wish they'd do away with that term, mainstream media. It's not. You know, it's far from it. But they wouldn't tell this story because the advertising.
Yeah.
The advertising is monstrous. That AT&T is paying MSNBC and CNN and Fox and CBS, ABC. They're paying so much money that they weren't about to do a story. This is a serious story.
It really is, because this is not, like you said, okay, it's not just, some data got out. Every customer, if you have I have AT&T, my data was part of this. Everybody who has AT&T, your data was part of this. They got your call logs, they got your text message logs. Now the company swears they didn't get the content of your text messages, but they got your location data.
Yeah,
I mean, this is going to be used by, probably improperly, I imagine, by police, right? Oh, look, we got you talking to this guy. We got you in this location where a crime was committed. This is horrible and has horrible ramifications, but the personal data itself, and nobody knows that this happened. This was a big news. And honestly, this is a one-page story. I mean, my God, this is such a huge data breach, one of the biggest in the history of data.
But it's just like everything about dysfunctional corporate media right now. Can you imagine having the guys in the top office say, no, don't do this story because these people pay so much money for advertising?
Right.
You know, we've seen it firsthand. You've
yeah.
seen it, I've seen it firsthand. They'll make the call, you better kill this story or else. Matter of fact, my daughter Sarah's working on a case, a baby formula case, that is killing preemie children, okay? There was a $60 million verdict in the case.
Right.
And so Fox said, yeah, this is a big story. People ought to know that you got a product out there that's killing people. But it was Abbott, it was these companies that make this stuff that advertise so much on their station. They killed the story. They killed it like, a week before they're supposed to do it. So this is just another example. And then I guess the thing that really is concerning, they say, well, they don't actually have your social security numbers or your date of birth. Can you imagine how easy it is to find that with just these little traces of information that they take from your calls and your texts? I mean, it's just a ridiculous argument. And the other part of it is, as taxpayers, we're having to pay the feds to go out and do all this investigation and find out what happened. And AT&T, what the hell? They don't care.
Right.
All the feds are spending the money. Taxpayers are spending the money to stop all this. They're not spending a dime from the standpoint of really making this a safe system.
Well, and thanks to the Patriot Act, they don't ever punish any of these tech companies for the massive data breaches because they rely on them when they need to kind of skirt, what's legal and what's not, and because we've been covering that for 20 years now.
Yeah, talk about that. People don't get that. This symbiotic relationship between the feds and these companies.
Yeah, and again, we have covered this for 20 years now. The fact that these telecom companies, they get in trouble a lot. They screw up a lot. They never get held accountable because every time it says, oh, okay, well, AT&T or Verizon, whoever you are, you did something really bad here. You let everybody's data go out to the public. Okay, but we're also working with you and providing you with all of this information. We've got these government contracts to work with you so that you can have this surveillance data on all the bad guys. Do you want to lose access to the so-called bad guys? No. So just forget the
Yeah.
data breach, forget
Yeah.
all the bad stuff.
You
We're
work with
your
us,
buddies.
We're
Yeah.
your friends, yeah. Wall Street bankers have started buying up asbestos lawsuit liabilities from companies, and they're using the massive pools of cash that have been set aside for victims to make a fortune for themselves. And this is just the tip of the iceberg now, how corporations are trying to pocket the monetary damages that are supposed to go to people who are dying from disease. This is called, the broad idea, this is called the Gould process. The Gould process is Wall Street comes in and buys the paper. They buy a company that's what we call a spin-off company. The company puts all of their assets into the spin-off company, right? Wall Street buys the spin-off company. And with that spin-off company, they buy all the cash that the primary companies put into the spin-off company. They buy all that money. Then the way they make their money, and they make it the way they make it into a profit center, is they don't pay claims.
Yeah.
Now, what they really do in the asbestos case is they wait for people to die. Okay, we know that if you've got 100 cases, the statistics are going to be that 20 of them are going to die within a certain period of time. If they die, the case is worth about a quarter of what it would have been had they lived. So Wall Street takes that money, puts it in their pocket, they invest and they make money. And this is a disgusting story. Again, nobody's telling the story on Wall. I mean, nobody's telling the story in corporate media.
Yeah, and so what we have here, like you explained, they spin off and say, okay, all our liabilities are over here, but also because we have to put the money here, especially with asbestos, there's the law that says you have to have the money. The big pot of billions of dollars is sitting in this company. We'll pay it when we get to it. And typically, they're more inclined to settle, right? Let's get these gone. Let's get everybody processed through. But Wall Street says, we don't have that problem. We don't have to get rid of these people. Yeah. We will get rid of settlements. Even if somebody has a crystal clear case of mesothelioma from asbestos exposure, what we will do is we will file appeals. We will file motion after motion after motion, and they will drag it out as long as humanly possible because one, they know that not only will the person die, but two, that person may not have the financial resources to keep having their lawyer respond to filings and work on a case for 10 years.
Well, what I do love about this is the hidden part of this message, that if you don't do this for a living, you don't catch it. It opens up the door to go after Wall Street in a really big way. And that's what you're going to see us do. I started my career trying asbestos cases, and the documents in those cases are so overwhelming. I mean, they have documents that say, basically, these guys make a good living with asbestos. It's okay if they die with asbestos. An actual document. Yep. You got documents that says, keep this covered up as long as possible, as long as we can squeeze a profit out of this product. Keep it as a cover. And this is, we're talking about 50 years ago.
And some of the documents over 100 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
They're called the Sumner-Simpson documents.
Yeah.
When you try the case, the jury would sit there and go, people actually wrote this. People actually, they actually sounded like they were the scientists from a Nazi prison camp where they used to do experiments. That's how bad they were.
Yeah.
And so now Wall Street's involved, and I love that now they are a target. These big funds coming in, man, you can mix it up with them, take shots at them, and this could be a very, very big problem for these folks that think that this is going to be a walk in the park. It's not. When people start paying attention and understand what the avenue is, take them to trial, this could be a big screw up on their part, actually.
Well, let's hope
if
so.
I were advising them, I would tell them that.
Yeah, let's hope so, because asbestos is just the first part. They're now also trying to go after the PFAS,
which is
pieces.
Also my case.
Exactly.
I tried the first 5 PFAS cases in the country. What we found in that scenario was people were dying of testicular cancer, they were dying of kidney cancer, there was birth defects, there was this whole cadre of illnesses that we uncovered in Ohio. They made a movie about it. It's called Dark Waters. It was about the fellow who brought us the case. His name was Rob Bilott, just a courageous young man. And but now they're trying to do the same thing here. They know these people are going to die, and if they die, they pay less money. It's literally 1/4 of what they would pay if the people stayed alive. It's called the Gould defense. It's been around a long time.
Yeah.
Wall Street's now figured it out. Now that President Biden has admitted he can't go on in the presidential race, questions are being raised about whether he can even serve the remainder of his term. Republicans are calling for his resignation, but Biden says he's going to finish out the year. This is really overkill. I mean, to say, you got to step down as president. I mean, come on. It's not like he's the only guy there. He's got to make it 6 months. The Dems better hope he makes it 6 months. They better hope there's no invasion. They better hope nothing goes really bad wrong. Because I just strike, this is a little much to me. What is your take on it?
I think in terms of will they actually force him to resign? Absolutely not. But is it a powerful campaign message? Because that's what they're testing right now. They're putting it out there to the public saying, listen, this guy was so messed up that he couldn't run for president, and they're going to let him keep being president.
And that's the Democrat mentality.
Right.
Is that what that's where
right.
this is headed?
They're trying to hang this on the head of the Democrats, which I don't think they understand that if Biden were to actually say, okay, fine, I'll resign, well, then Harris becomes president. Then she is technically the incumbent on the ballot.
Right.
Like, calling for his resignation would severely hinder the Republican Party, but they don't always think things through. They just jump on a talking point.
First of all, it's not fair to him. He's going to make it,
Right.
Although the idea of his brother James saying, this gives me some time to spend with my brother in the last days of his life. Did you see that quote? I didn't get that exact. But let's see. It gives me time to spend with my brother towards the end of his life, as if he's on the deathbed. But I just think this is a little much, and I'm a little offended by making the mistake. There's people that can be there for the next 6 months to make sure everything's okay, but the Democrats better hope like hell nothing goes wrong.
Right.
Because if it does, it's just another thing where, first of all, they have the cover-up, right? The argument, they covered this up for a year and a half. Which, you and I have done the stories on that. I kind of agree there was a cover-up. But to say that he's incapable of making it these next 6 months with the kind of support they're going to have behind him. I mean, everybody worries about the nuclear attack in the middle of the night. Can he respond to it? I would hope that everybody's tightening up in the next 6 months while he finishes up. But to ask him to retire is a little much.
Right. I mean, it's not going to be Biden sitting alone in a room making that decision.
Yeah.
He will have much smarter people, just like every president has, much smarter people around them.
Yeah, and they'll double up. If they're smart, they will double and triple up for the next 6 months.
And in the event, obviously, if something were to happen to Biden, if he passes away, well, that's why we have a presidential line of succession. We're not going to be left without a leader. The Constitution kind of handled that.
Okay. Now here's the test. Here's the test, because I asked you in the other segment. Are you warm and fuzzy about Kamala Harris? Are you warm and fuzzy with her being in command of a nuclear attack?
I would be.
Okay.
I definitely do trust her on that front.
Okay. Well, good. I'm just curious because I'm always trying to figure out your bounds.
Yeah.
So that's safe. I'm not pro or con her. I'm just watching right now. I'm just trying to figure out where does this go?
It's going to be a weird. What do we have? 100 some odd days, basically 100 days. It's going to be a weird 100 days.
Yeah,
no matter what happens with what's happened in the last 2 weeks in this country, the next 100 days is going to be so much weirder.
All right, fair enough. I always listen to you, man. Let's see what happens. That's all the time we have, but all these segments are going to be posted right here on this channel in the coming week, so make sure you subscribe. I'm Mike Papantonio, and this has been America's Lawyer, where we tell you stories every week that corporate media just won't tell you because their advertisers don't allow for it or their tribal politics simply don't permit it. The problem is if you're Democrat, you've got to color within Democrat lines. If you're Republican, you got to color within the Republican lines. As you can see watching this show, we don't have lines. Hope to see you next time.
it had helped dirty money flow through its branches around the world, including at least 800...
Plaintiffs allege that the defendants provided money and medical goods to terrorist groups Hezbollah and Jaish al-Mahdi.
This is a well-organized business for these individuals that carry out these attacks. Terrorism is a business, and they run it like a business.
They knew about what was going on for a decade. They absolutely, no question about it, knew that HSBC was washing money. They had every reason to understand it was for terrorism and it was for drug cartels. Took no action whatsoever.
These banks are involved. Their accounts are connected, and they're using them to mask the transactions. The more complicated they can make the transactions, the more distance they can put between the bad guys and a seemingly legitimate purpose of these funds.
They pay $1.9 billion, which is a drop in the bucket compared to what they've made, and nobody goes to prison. These CEOs, these bankers that made this decision, they're safe at home. They know what they've done. It's resulted in the death of Americans, contractors and soldiers, not just hundreds, but thousands. And we look the other way because they don't look like criminals. The die is cast. The people that are responsible are on Wall Street.
And they don't look like criminals. It's almost a suspension of disbelief. Sometimes I'll have people call me and say, is this real? Do they really get away with this? Yeah, they do.